Let's go back to Hollywood and our top story this morning, where 79-year-old Diane Keaton died, shocking the business and fans. 2 days after Diane Keaton died at 79, Keanu Reeves appeared and delivered words not spoken in 20 years. Instead of courteous or evasive answers, Keanu stopped the journalists. Were they connected off-screen? Why did Diane stay silent until her death, whereas Keanu spoke up afterward? What a fantastic artist and person. I worked with her once and cherish that experience. Stay until the conclusion of the video to see why some connections don't need definition. Diane died soon after Keanu visited her twice at home. The meetings were held in private without media presence. Diane's adoptive daughter and personal assistant confirmed every aspect of her final days. Keanu came alone, unaccompanied. Diane's health declined by mid-2025. She was fatigued, immobile, and rarely left Pacific Palisades. Diane stopped working, canceled appointments, denied interviews, and withdrew from potential projects. Keanu initially arrived in mid-July, according to her aide. No one else was present for about 3 hours in the living room. Early September was the second time. Diane only received relatives and doctors after that meeting. No notes or photos were taken during either meeting. However, individuals at her home at the time checked and agreed on every detail. Diane's daughter, Dexter, said Keanu was one of the only people my mother actively invited. Diane never revealed their relationship, but she did not avoid Keanu in her dying years. She requested everyone in the home to provide him complete privacy on both visits. Diane sent handwritten letters from her address 4 days before her death. One went immediately to Keanu's Los Angeles representative office. Her relatives confirmed that Diane wrote the brief text herself without a copywriter. The family said she was conscious and chatting normally until the last night. After having trouble breathing, Diane was hospitalized the next morning. Early October. 11 morning. She died. In her final days, she said nothing. But one sentence she told family was saved. I've met vital folks. Both sides have never disputed their relationship. Only Keanu's presence at Diane's death demonstrates their actual relationship. Everything finished softly, but Diane's loved ones knew she had chosen how to leave. After those last remarks, the unthinkable happened hours later. Sudden departure. Diane died at a Los Angeles private hospital on October 11, 2025. The cause of death was pneumonia. She had been too feeble to perform everyday tasks before that. No public goodbyes were said. Hospitalization and death took under 10 hours. The death of Diane was not disclosed immediately. The family confirmed on October 15 after keeping quiet. The media began to publish the tragedy, and many of her co-workers shared photos and memories. Diane died quietly, as she had chosen to live recently. People close to Diane said she experienced extreme weariness since mid-2025. She ceased attending several community activities, declined an opportunity to reconvene for a short film, and withdrew from charity construction plans. Workers accompanying her during this time often took a break. Her family and medical staff were the only ones who knew her health. After years in Pacific Palisades, Diane quietly listed her beautiful home in March 2025. Some friends believed the move was more than that. Her sale was one of the first indicators she was decluttering. No notification or media explanation was given for leaving the house dubbed the last place I needed. Diane last appeared at a modest Malibu animal rescue gala. She looked leaner in event photos with short hair and a cover-up. Diane skipped events after that day. Diane lived quietly in her final 3 weeks, according to her caregiver. She only called her 2 children and a few close relatives and did not utilize social media. She wrote several handwritten letters, kept a daily diary, and asked for no visitors. In an interview, Diane said, "If I ever leave Hollywood, it may be because I'm living more truthfully than ever. Those words are now true." Diane meticulously planned her funeral, including the request for no public funeral, no media tombstone, and donations to 2 organizations she worked with, a Los Angeles food bank, and a Southern California desert dog rescue shelter. Diane's close friend said she always wanted everything to be low-key, inconspicuous, and not annoy others, and that continued till the end. Diane died days after mailing her last letters. One recipient was Keanu. He disappeared, only to re-emerge when everyone was looking for him. Keanu appeared not to share his sentiments, but to clarify something he hadn't addressed in 20 years. His comments were not about fame or roles. Diane was addressed directly and sternly for the first time. The quiet ends. Keanu made his public debut 2 days following Diane's death. He mentioned her explicitly for the first time in years. Dozens of media waited at the Los Angeles premiere of his latest picture. Keanu paused before answering regarding Diane's death. Her generosity as an artist made her unique. She treated me well. The message was short, but his words and timing drew many people's attention. Keanu never used the expression with coworkers. His short, non-PR answer was honest and emotional. Keanu mentioned Diane again on a pre-scheduled talk program that night when discussing their film. He described Diane's emotional conversation with Jack Nicholson in Paris. He termed the scenario brilliant, delicate, and sincere. No further relationships were mentioned by Keanu. He always spoke about Diane in the present or present perfect tense. In turmoil, Diane brought order, he remarked. After the show aired, he fled backstage, skipped the after-party, and didn't speak for days. Keanu did not plan to speak at the memorial or about Diane, according to a spokesman. His image management staff and producers did not influence his decision to speak out on these 2 occasions. The first time in 20 years since they co-starred, Keanu disclosed his relationship with Diane. Before that, his answers to questions about her were brief, usually praising her acting or work ethic. When questioned if he and Diane had anything outside of work, Keanu neither denied nor confirmed, but he finished the interview with a comment repeated by the media for days. Her presence has always been crucial to my journey. For those who have followed Keanu for years, this was a rare instance when he acknowledged his real sentiments for a woman who had appeared with him on film. The reporters couldn't approach Keanu after that. All film promotion was done by other performers and producers. He did not attend another function for over 2 weeks after his statement. He continued a sequence of days of silence, but this time he said enough. A colleague stated Diane kept her distance, but showed her actual feelings. She kept Keanu out of trust, not celebrity. When talking about Diane, Keanu doesn't utilize buddy, coworker, or official phrases. He calls her by name in clear, concise language. His remark shows that this is no longer a memorial service or marketing. It follows a long pause and is the first time they've spoken openly about their relationship. These are neither interview prompts nor tributes. By shouting out the name of someone he loved, Keanu rekindles a journey that began where they first stepped in front of the camera. Bonding begins. Diane and Keanu met on Something's Gotta Give in the early 2000s. Diane plays an old playwright and Keanu a youthful doctor. Their contributions were soon recognized, but their interactions were much more impressive. According to a film crew worker, no one anticipated them to work so well together from the start. Diane generally requested time to read the screenplay alone, but in this project, she spent most of her time with Keanu, swapping lines, evaluating his psyche, and deciding on scene direction. Keanu never interrupted his co-star's work, but he was always available to read the script with Diane. Both arrived earlier than the call time and left later each filming day. Nancy Meyers, the film's director, said that Diane proposed lengthening some of her sequences with Keanu after seeing the original cut. Diane noted, "Being with him, I felt like I didn't have to try too hard." Many unplanned situations became highlights at the film's release. After filming, Diane and Keanu never worked together again. However, they occasionally appeared together. It was rare for both to present at the 2020 Oscars. They briefly discussed the original screenplay category before declaring the winner. Insiders said the two chatted for around 30 minutes in the waiting area before the show. The attendees said they felt comfortable with each other without distance or formality. Keanu is rarely mentioned in interviews, but Diane selected two co-stars when asked about her favorites. That list included Keanu. Her response was brief. He simplifies. Keanu also named Diane when asked which woman influenced his art. Diane thinks differently than anyone else I've worked with. Something's Gotta Give behind-the-scenes documents show that Diane and Keanu shot most of their scenes swiftly with few retakes. The director rarely made any alterations because their acting was so compatible. That is rare in a star-studded picture. They never appeared together at personal gatherings or in the media outside of the cinema. However, Diane's close friend said she constantly described Keanu as a guy who doesn't belong, but makes her feel protected. This was reaffirmed in a 2018 podcast interview when Diane briefly discussed her life's people. Keanu gave few responses about Diane following the movie. He showed respect by repeating Diane's name and not using pronouns. In media interviews, he only cited Diane by her full name among several co-stars. The movie sparked the relationship. After the movie, they communicated often. Instead of raucous events, they chose solitary times. Work became a relationship without being public. It wasn't how often they saw each other, but how they kept their distance. How they kept their distance strengthened their relationship over time. She lived fully in that space in her latter years as she had chosen. Private life, she chose. Diane spent most of her later years away from entertainment. She avoided significant cinema events, talk shows, and new film roles after 2020. Diane focused on personal interests and charity work after the success of Annie Hall and the First Wives Club. She never married. Diane adopted both her children in middle age. Diane stated her distaste for traditional models in various interviews. When asked about marriage, she stated she lived alone because she wanted to handle her life alone, not because she couldn't love. Diane was careful and inflexible with social conventions while active. She dressed her own way, set her own schedule, and turned down millions-dollar advertising contracts. Diane constantly controlled her job and image, according to her co-workers. Diane wrote books, renovated ancient houses, and supported abandoned canines after leaving the spotlight. She designed and renovated several houses, selling or donating them to community groups. She said she prefers architecture to acting. In her senior years, Diane lived alone and rarely had guests. She maintained contact with a few close friends and family. She read handwriting and tended a backyard garden daily. She kept a schedule, avoided social media, and rarely left public accounts for years. Close friends expected Diane's public withdrawal. She prepared early for this. Since early 2025, many personal notes, documents, and notebooks were completed. A mailing list of donations and a thorough guide to handling her assets after death were given. Keanu was one of the few names in this handwritten note. Diane's relative said he should be notified personally. No explanation was given, but his appearance at two important points subsequently confirmed the connection. Diane was private but not secretive. She chose privacy as part of her freedom. None of her statements was covert, just not revealing superfluous information. She adhered to this approach despite queries, partnership offers, and post-production media requests. A director who worked with Diane said she works as if she doesn't need anyone to affirm her direction. In her professional and personal actions, Diane embodies this statement. Diane has always chosen her actions. Not controlled, not seeking crowd support, she never allowed the relationship to shine, even with others who had shared her path. Diane always acts clearly, gently, and decisively. Her relationship with Keanu over the years also follows the same principle. Occasionally, but appropriately. Not public, but enough to last. No titles, no definitions, no public understanding since she doesn't need it. Diane lived and left when she saw enough. Keanu doesn't talk much, yet when he comes, people comprehend some connections without explanation. Leave a remark if this adventure makes you feel special. What moves me most about this story is not the rumor of a secret romance or the intrigue of Hollywood's private lives. It's the profound humanity beneath it. The passing of Diane Keaton, followed by Keanu Reeves' rare and emotional acknowledgement, reminds us that not every connection in life needs to be defined by labels or public validation. In an industry built on image, exposure, and performance, what stands out most here is the quiet dignity of two people who lived, felt, and respected one another beyond the stage lights. To me, Diane Keaton's final years represent a powerful form of self-possession, the ability to live and depart on her own terms. In a world that constantly pressures public figures, especially women, to remain visible and relevant, her decision to withdraw gracefully is not isolation, but self-liberation. She embraced privacy not as secrecy, but as a right, a final act of autonomy in an age that treats personal lives as public property. That choice alone deserves deep respect. As for Keanu Reeves, his reaction captures something rarely seen in Hollywood: restraint, sincerity, and emotional clarity without spectacle. His brief words, stripped of showmanship, say more than grand eulogies ever could. It is as if both he and Diane shared an understanding that love, respect, or spiritual kinship doesn't always need an audience to be real. Their story demonstrates that authentic human bonds transcend categories like friendship or romance. They exist quietly, without needing to be defined or explained. This story also raises broader questions about our culture's obsession with defining relationships and demanding explanations for every connection. Must intimacy be labeled to be valid? Must silence be equated with secrecy? I believe we need to learn from Diane Keaton's philosophy, to allow space for ambiguity, for emotional complexity that cannot be captured in headlines. True depth in human relationships often lies in what remains unsaid. The solution, or rather the lesson, I draw from this is simple but profound. We should learn to honor privacy as much as we honor presence. In our personal lives, and especially in how we view public figures, we must cultivate empathy, the understanding that a person's worth does not depend on how much they reveal. Diane's final act, organizing her affairs, writing letters by hand, and choosing a quiet farewell, is a statement of peace and mastery over her own narrative. Ultimately, Diane Keaton and Keanu Reeves remind us that life's most meaningful relationships may never fit into conventional frames. Their connection, however undefined, reflects the rare kind of mutual respect that endures beyond fame, beyond time, even beyond death. In a world that confuses noise for truth, their silence speaks volumes about love, dignity, and the quiet courage of living authentically until the very end.